Welcome to the Elizabeth Cunningham Show, courageously expanding love with me, Elizabeth Cunningham. Has the way that love has arisen in you seemed out of place or even taboo? My mission is to expand the conversation of love in the world. Is it possible to have deep, loving, healthy relationships? Have you ever been curious about having more than one relationship or partner at a time? Get ready to transform in love, be courageous, and set yourself free. In this show, we talk about relationships, sex, love, and the ways we wish we could be, but never thought were possible. I shed light on things that are not always talked about with conversations about expanding love. The Elizabeth Cunningham Show starts now. Welcome to the Elizabeth Cunningham Show, courageously expanding in love. And today we are going to talk about, get this, world peace through awesome sex with Maggie Rast. But before we get into that, and before I introduce this amazing human being with this phenomenal topic, I want to remind you that the Elizabeth Cunningham Show is live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. on the Transformation Network Facebook page, and is then aired on YouTube and podcast, and is available for consumption every Thursday. So all links are in the show notes. So we'll get right ahead to our show. So Maggie, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're so very welcome. I want this conversation out in the world to empower people.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay, I'm going to read off your bio here. So Maggie is committed to everyone living a life of freedom, power, and full self-expression by bringing the conversation of world peace through awesome sex to the public. After retiring as an award-winning residential architect, Maggie is dedicating the remainder of her life to this cause, and creating awesome sexual relationships has the power to heal ourselves and those around us. Oh my gosh, that is such an audacious claim.
Yes. Well, Maslow, the hierarchy of needs,
right?
Sex is right there at the bottom of the pyramid. It connects us as human beings. It's as necessary to life as air, food, shelter. And we don't talk about it. Like, what's up with that?
Right, exactly. Well, and what about the people, I'm gonna throw a wrench in that. So what about the people who are like, well, but it's because of procreation, not because you're talking about sex for pleasure.
Yes. We are human animals. Procreation is the purpose of sex, but we're one of the few animals that has sex recreationally. And our bodies are made for sex.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a way to connect to people on a very close and intimate level. And it's funny, we take it so seriously. But
it's so serious.
Yes,
it's so
really serious.
Very serious.
Don't talk about it. Shh. Don't. I mean, the whole concept of being a virgin till you're married, mm-hmm. and then flipping the switch from like, no, it's bad and wrong, don't do it, to now it's a healthy part of your relationship. Like, how does that happen?
Right. Now because you're married, you magically know how to have an amazing sexual experience.
Yes. Yeah. And that's tough in a lot of relationships because it is so serious and there was so much guilt and shame around it, or being vigilant and protecting against it, that it's hard to switch your perception. and then talk about it. Tell your partner like what you want, even what you know is pleasurable to yourself.
Right.
Like give your partner a hint.
Yeah. It's like, how do you give your partner a manual when you've never been able to write that manual before?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I will share with you, I was a virgin till I was 30.
Mm-hmm.
And in a 20-year relationship with my husband, either dating or married. And afterwards, I realized, I did some research because this is my topic, and I came across the term sexless marriage. Like we had sex, like, well, it was okay. You know, it wasn't, my sex drive was bigger than his. But a sexless marriage is considered doing it less than 10 times a year.
Mm.
And that's what I was in. I had closed down my need for sex, even in that relationship, because my sex drive was higher. And, you know, I didn't notice. I just thought it was normal because I didn't have a whole lot of experience. I just thought it was normal. But,
right. Well, that's also the problem when you don't talk about something, is that then you kind of either think that your experience is normal or you hope that your experience is normal at the very least, right? You're like, I hope other people, like, I hope that I'm not doing this wrong, but like, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah. And that's it. You don't know. And since I hadn't really masturbated much, that was bad and wrong too, like the underlying conversation. So I didn't even know what my body liked and didn't like. So I couldn't help him. Right. And in fact, the whole thing is like, oh, he should give me an orgasm. It's like it was his duty to give me an orgasm. Like he should know. And what a crock. Like he didn't know any more than I did, and I couldn't tell him what to do. So we're like teenagers fumbling around in the dark, you know. It happens or it doesn't happen.
Yeah, hopefully this time. And then like the anxiety that's all up in that. Yes. But I kind of want to like switch topic a little bit, because I do want to know, like, because we started off with this, okay, like world peace through awesome sex. So what does that even mean? Like, what do you mean? Like, how is that even connected? Like, that seems like such, I mean, with the work that I do, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see that. Like, but what is the connection there between world peace and awesome sex?
Okay. Well, sometimes when I say that, people think I'm advocating for orgies in the street. But I'm not. You know, world peace through awesome sex could look like abstinence. The idea is choice. Like you actually have the choice to choose what works for you and what doesn't work for you. No one else, you. But what I'm saying is that there's three aspects that connect world peace and awesome sex. Okay. And I'm asserting their authentic communication, really saying what there is to say and listening, respect for yourself and your partner, and then coming from a sense or a being of contribution. And that if you use these aspects to create an awesome sexual, intimate relationship, like that's where your practice is. And you become masterful of that. And it rolls out from there. It's like a grassroots thing. It rolls out from there. Then you're like more authentic with your family. You're more respectful of your neighbors. Our society is stuck in a lot of topics. They can't move forward. Like horrible about gun control. It all goes to a knee-jerk reaction or butting heads. But if we actually got like down at the base, we all want safety. Mm-hmm. But we start up at the top with the guns. We need to start down at the safety where we're all connected, and then respectfully build up from there with listening to people's opinions and their viewpoints and coming to a co-created way to deal with it that has everyone win.
Yeah. And I mean, and that sounds amazing. And so the pillars that you created were authentic communication,
Yes.
respecting your partner, and coming from contribution.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So in those, and the thing is that like all of that sounds really good. Right. And I always hear the naysayers in my head. Like I
Yep.
always hear like okay, but what about this? Right.
Right.
And how is this not kind of, for lack of a better way to say this, like hippy dippy bullshit?
Ah, well, it is a practice.
Mm-hmm.
And like, for instance, authentic communication, we don't talk. We like wait for our turn to speak, but we don't really have dialogues with people a lot of times. And especially like if we can talk about and be honest and create around sex through our communication, what we like, what we don't like, consent, expectations, communicating what's there. It just like if you can do that on an intimate level, you can do it anywhere.
Right.
So it's practicing that. And we're all about communication. That's what separates us from other animals. And being able, so the communication isn't just what's coming out of my mouth, it's actually listening, like having a space where people can say things that they might not be able to have said before, or they are formulating ideas, or they're nervous, but giving them a chance to stumble around, make mistakes, reword it until they get it right, but giving people a safe space for that to happen. So you pause also to let them answer, like, what do you want? And not give it to them, but listen and ask questions. Can you imagine raising kids that way? Or having family dinners that way?
Yeah. And it does add to like illuminate the pillars that you created, right? Where it's the authentic communication, being able to say exactly what there is to say, respecting your partner, which also goes along with listening, right?
Yes.
Which is like respecting their opinion and respecting that, it might be different than yours, but that you're on the same team. Bring back to that, like, what is this foundation that you're building? Is it the foundation of safety? Is it the foundation of, love? Like what is this, common ground that we're on right now? And then listening to each other from there. And then also, like you said, coming from contribution where, then you're also, for me, it kind of adds to like the teamwork part of it.
Yeah, it's not measuring.
Yeah.
It's not like you did this much, so I'm going to do that much. You did, always looking for the balance, always looking for like, am I being taken advantage of? Always like, whoa, wait a second. You had an orgasm and I didn't. Like, what's up with that? This is unfair. But actually being a contribution as a way of seeing the world, like getting that you make a difference in the world just the way you are. Like you coming to a relationship is a contribution.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's really powerful that you have created these pillars that not only work to create an amazing sex life for people, but can also be a foundation for like family, community, even possibly the entire world. So we're going to go on break really quick. And then when we get back, I want to get into like the juiciness of awesome sex. Like, let's talk a little, like, what is awesome sex? What do you mean by awesome sex? And also, we've been talking about some of the sticking points, but like, really, what are people dealing with? Like, why aren't people having awesome sex?
Right.
What are we running into? What are the barriers to having awesome sex? So all of that when we get back from break. We'll see y'all in a minute. Always got to dance in. Welcome back to the Elizabeth Cunningham Show, where we are courageously expanding love today. That is absolutely what we're doing. So we're here with Maggie Rast. We're talking about world peace through awesome sex. And in our last segment, we covered what does it mean, like world peace through awesome sex. We talked about this audacious claim that you have made, which I think is just so incredible and beautiful, and like a goal to shoot for. And so in this segment, I want to talk about, okay, what is awesome sex? Like, what do you mean by that? Because there's so many different ways that you can have sex, define sex, what is that? Right.
Yeah.
And also, what are the sticking points? Like, why don't we just naturally, if we're built for sex, why don't we just naturally have awesome sex? What gets in the way of people having awesome sex?
There's lots in the way.
Yeah.
Awesome sex for me, I've expanded the definition of sex. We talk about sex in like a heteronormal intercourse, like that's sex, but it really goes from flirting to aftercare. It's like this whole range.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're just focused on intercourse and having the orgasm, you miss so much.
Mm-hmm.
You miss so much of sex is a tactile, it's everything. It's all your senses.
Right.
And there's a book called Slow Sex. It's like slowing it down so you can enjoy each other and really have it luscious. And that to me is awesome sex. And as I said earlier, it's your choice, whether it's abstinence, whether it's orgies in the street, whether it's monogamous, whether it's poly, whatever it is. But I think part of the reason we don't have sex, awesome or not, is that we don't prioritize it.
Mm-hmm.
In relationships, a lot of times we are working a lot. There's pressures of family, all these, it's like, I'm too tired. But if you don't attend to it, it sort of disappears. That's what happened in my marriage. I was busy. I focused on work. I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, less sex or more work. But I concentrated on work. I concentrated on my love for my dog. It was, and what I realized, and I because we don't talk about it, I don't think people realize that sex is connected. It's like who we are. Like, it connects us to our creativity, to our sense of play. It connects us to our bodies. It allows us to be present, like to be profoundly present in the moment. And I think that's probably one of the most important things, is to be present during sex. Like, don't let your mind wander off, or don't have it as a duty and I'm doing my shopping list, or, I want this done, or, what, but actually come together to play.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to look the same each time. I'm for spontaneity, but what I like is you're just in the moment and things evolve. It doesn't have to look the same way twice. It doesn't have to include, 1, 2, 3, boom, you're done. And we don't talk about it. And there is some expertise, shall I say, or techniques, or just being used to things that if we don't practice and we're not talking about it, how do we know? How do we know? And if we're not, I know I was in my 30s and I was driving around the Beltway just sobbing. I didn't know what was going on. And that's when I actually went into therapy. And, I had depression. And I didn't know. And the therapist asked me one day, she goes, how's your day? And I'm like, it's fine. Traffic was a little busy, blah, blah, blah. She goes, you never answer what it's like for you. It's always out here. What's going on out here? And I think we get busy and we don't tune into our bodies that tell us. It's so wise. Your body's so wise. It tells you whether you're stressing yourself out. It tells you whether you're joyful, but we ignore all those clues.
Right. Well, and we're also just not taught to either. I know for myself, when I started doing this work, and you mentioned therapy, but like whenever you start doing like that inner work, whether it be therapy, coaching, what have you, what I started to notice was also how people answer the question, specifically my family, how they answered the question, how are you? And it would be, well, I worked on the garden today, or I went to work today, or I did this today, or I saw this person. And it was never anything internal.
Right.
And so it's like we are kind of trained. And I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine earlier today where people associate the weather with their mood. Like the weather has something to do with their internal world. And really like being able to check in on your internal world and know how to do that,
Yes.
and then be able to express, and not only check in, but then be able to express what that is. And so kind of going back to, this idea of awesome sex and what it is and what gets in the way of people actually expressing that, besides like it not being a priority, it's like a not knowing how.
Right.
It's also, shame, like because when you don't know something, how do you feel about it? Like,
Right.
take sex off the table, but like when you don't know something about something, how likely are you to talk about it, bring it up, especially if you think that other people know more than you about
Yes.
it, or know something else that you don't know?
And
Like,
you're certainly not going to be playful if you're trying to, if in the back of your mind is, am I doing it right? Am I doing this right? And so getting feedback and practice. I mean, practice, what do they say? It takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at anything.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh, I totally never put those two and two. Oh my God, I talk about sex and eroticism all the time, and I literally never put that together. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh, it does take, I wonder how many hours of practice I have it. Now I'm like curious. My mind went off on a rabbit hole of that one.
Well, I grew up, I was 5 in the family and 2 other sisters. And we used to do what we called 20-20-20. We'd do like chilies on the back or little massage on the back, 20 minutes. And then the other person would do 20 minutes, then come around. So there was a lot of sensation work. And that's, I actually love that. So, I mean, people can start just like going on their skin, with little light fingers and see how that feels. Do something like harder. See how that's, doing with the flat of your hand versus doing it with your fingertips. Right. Scratches. I mean, you don't know unless you practice. And that's actually, awesome sex is about learning what you like.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, experimenting, getting curious, making it. But yeah, no, and I think that, and I'm totally on board with you. I'm totally on board with like the idea of awesome sex being all the way from, like the intrigue, the anticipation of it, like the flirting,
the twinkle, the unease, the flutters in your heart,
all the way to the aftercare, all the way through, and that there is no way that it has to look in between either. And I think that there's so much, like, besides just not prioritizing, I think that there's so much that comes up for people. It's the not talking about it. It's the, I need to get it right. It's the shame, it's the, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm embarrassed. It's all of it. Right.
This is going to become, or is, I am asserting, is a problem with sex and aging. Because at some point, something's going to happen to one of the partners. Either their hormones are going to be out of whack, or they're going to have an accident, or psychologically, they're just like done. I've had all my children, I'm done. Whatever it is. And if people don't talk about it and don't talk about the difference, this is a big part that I was in my investigation, was the separation between love and sex. They're two separate things. It's great when they're together, but they're two separate things. So if this, in the sex and aging, my thing is, if one partner loses the drive for some reason, what is the other partner supposed to do? I mean, are they supposed to grin and bear it? But if they actually talked about it and knew that sex and love were two different things, there could be some other options. And if you took orgasm off as the number one thing and expanded it, there could be a lot of play that isn't what we traditionally call sex.
Yeah. And I especially love, because I think that is such a fixation in our culture around orgasms. And so I think taking orgasms off the table, and this is something that is in a lot of practices in having healthy sex,
Yes.
is take orgasm off the table. Just take it off the table as a practice and as an experiment. Not that you can't bring it back to the table at some point, but
and not that it can't sneak in there by accident.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. I'm all for the accidental orgasms. Oh my God. Fantastic. But really taking that pressure off and then allowing for the exploration. Awesome. Okay. Well, we're going to go on another break. Oh my God. I love talking about this. This is amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. We're going to go on another break. And we talked about on this section, what is awesome sex? What are people dealing with? Why aren't people having awesome sex? And so next segment, we're going to talk about, okay, so what can you do? Okay, great. What now? So that's what we're talking about when we get back. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Elizabeth Cunningham Show, Courageously Expanding in Love. And we're here with Maggie Rast talking about world peace through awesome sex. Oh my gosh. And we have covered so much on this episode already. So if you're coming in halfway through, definitely watch or listen to the episodes as they air on Wednesday night, Thursday morning. So now that we talked about what do you mean by world peace through awesome sex? What is even awesome sex? What stops people from having awesome sex? Why aren't we just having awesome sex right now? What can people do now that we've kind of talked about some of the barriers? What can people do?
Oh, well, I think number one is that we need to have some comprehensive sex education growing up. Like, not just Latin names and cross sections of people, but consent, communication, expectations. Like, what do you do with the feelings you're dealing with? For people who are, older, I guess, start with just having some private time to yourself and get to know your body. Get to know what you like. I mean, just explore, like, from your toes to your head, like, what feels good. You can always find a lover. I was, after my marriage, it was about 2 years after my marriage, and I went to a friend of mine, because I didn't know, I wasn't paying attention to guys, but I really was. I went to my friend and I said, you know what? And she was in the swinger group, which I wasn't really interested in. But I said, I'm not ready for a relationship, but I sure could use some good sex. And she actually set me up with my first lover. And it was amazing. And I was nervous as hell. I hadn't met him in person. We met for lunch, and I'm just like shaking in my thing when he comes in, and he goes, it'll be fine. We're going to eat our lunch. We're going to talk. We're going to get to know each other a little. We'll drive back to your place. We'll get naked, and everything will come out okay.
Wow.
And it
what a
did.
bold thing to say. Amazing.
Yes. And it did. And they're different areas. Like, he was a swinger before he got married, and he loved his wife, and she had some medical issues, so she couldn't actually have intercourse. So what I liked about it, it was all above board. Everyone knew what was happening. It wasn't like a secret or cheating or whatever, but I really got to know him. He said I probably saw him at his most himself, because we weren't dating. We weren't going to get married. He didn't have to put anything on. And I really got to know how much he loved his wife and how this was a different aspect of it, but that his connection with her was profound, and it opened up my world. So that's another thing you can do. There are classes on, breath is a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
Breathing. So, I mean, even taking yoga classes and breathing, or tantra classes.
Breath work.
Yeah.
I highly recommend breath work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you can basically turn on the energy just by breathing.
Oh, yeah. Creating more oxygen in your system. And it can absolutely be a huge turn on. It's a really big part of different aspects of eroticism is just like different breathing techniques, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know Tantra's a lot like that. And Tantra's also about not having the orgasm, but having the energy build and take it from there. Because a lot of it is really getting profoundly in touch with your body. So even sitting with your feet flat on the floor and scanning your body to see how it feels. Is it tight somewhere? Is it not? We don't pay attention. And then the other thing is, breathing also helps you relax your mind. Because one of my lovers had said he likes sex because it makes him present. Like, all the other things that he has to do go out. He's like all there. So if you can bring your attention, poof, right there, and that's where the exploration and the play can come in.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, it has to look a certain way, you can actually play.
Yeah, I remember I'm going to tell the story actually. There was I was actually having this conversation with a current partner and another friend of ours, but it was before me and this person had started dating. And we were just talking to this other person as a friend, and they were about to go on this date. And it was like, they'd been dating this person for a while. So this was probably going to be the date that they had set. The date. It was the date. And she was freaking out about it. Like, she was like, oh my God. She's like, I haven't had sex in a while. Like, what am I going to do? Like, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And so me and my not yet partner were kind of like giving her tips. And one of the things that I said was just like, let it be weird. Just let it be weird. Like, sex can just get weird. There's fluids, there's weird noises, there's awkward positions, there's confusion sometimes, like, let it be weird. It's okay. Like, sex is not like the sexy scenes that are like cut by film editors, like, that's not what it is. Sex can get freaking weird sometimes.
Weird and funny and you know, don't worry about your face getting all like scrunched up and stuff because you know, people think that's sexy. Like I'm like, oh, that's sexy. Whoa.
It's so true though.
And making noises.
Noise, yeah, totally.
That's self-expression.
Oh my God.
Sometimes I worry whether the windows are open. It's like, oh my God.
Let it go, let it rip. And my not yet partner in this scenario was like, yeah, I always try to make my partners laugh.
Yes.
Whenever we have sexy, it doesn't even have to be sex. It can just be like sexy time, whatever.
Right.
Like I love bringing laughter in. Actually, that was the moment that I knew that I loved this person. Like it was before we were dating and they were like, I always try to make my lovers laugh. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in love with you.
I giggle and stuff sometimes, and I have to make sure it's not, let them know it's not something they did. It's just like I'm enjoying myself or, you know, something.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is that when you know yourself that well, this kind of comes full circle because when you explore your own body, when you know yourself really well, when you've practiced, when you've put in the time and the practice, then you can actually say that. Because I say that to lovers too, where I'm just like, look, I giggle.
Yeah.
Like, I giggle. It's a thing that I do. And it probably means you're doing something right because I'm just like, like I'm so happy, you know?
And this is actually another tip because I find it, I have this right brain, left brain kind of thing. If my lover asks me what I want, it switches over to the other side and I have to think about it and it takes me out of the moment. So I actually use sounds to guide so if I have trouble saying it sometimes, I'll just use like sounds to move them around and it gives them a cue.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing about communication and kind of going all the way back to your pillars at the very beginning. And one of them is authentic communication. And like communication can mean so many different things. Like communication is not always words. In fact, most of communication isn't words. Yeah. And so also in knowing yourself, like I have my course that I teach people. And one of the things that got brought up was that there's sometimes when you can't communicate with words. Like, what if you're in a scene where like you have something in your mouth?
Yes.
And so what do you do then? And so it can be like, okay, if I turn my head to the right, that means that I need to stop, right? Yeah. Or if I put my hands over my face, that means like I need something, right? Yeah. You have to take the thing out of my mouth so I can tell you what I need.
Oh. And you know what? This is a great thing. One of my friends said, because I did a thing on safe words, and she's like, I didn't know there were safe words. What do you mean there's safe words?
Yes.
Because she wasn't in that sort of thing. So what we consider edgy type play in the vanilla world, you can still use them. Like consent came from there. Yeah. Like really talking about what's going to happen and how to stop the action. And absolutely. That's like if red always meant like stop immediately.
Right.
And people said it and then the action stopped. Right. And the trust was developed. Right now we have the thing like no sometimes means yes, no means I need to persuade you, blah, blah, blah. That's all bullshit. Can I say that?
You can say that. You're allowed to say that. No, beautiful. Okay. Well, obviously we could talk about this forever. I'm really glad that safe words got brought up too. Okay. So these are some things that people can do. We are going to end this segment, go on a break and then come back. But I want y'all to think about, y'all who are listening, watching, what are you getting out of this? right? Like, what are you getting out of this for you? Because that's what we're going to talk about on our next segment. Like, what are you getting out of this for you? How does this apply to you? What can you now go do and apply in your life? Okay, great. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Elizabeth Cunningham Show, Courageously Expanding in Love. And I am here talking about world peace through awesome sex with Maggie Rast. And this has been a amazing conversation. I don't even know. World peace through awesome sex is totally possible. You got me sold. All right. Okay, but on our last section, what I love to do is just run through a couple of questions. And I really want people to get a sense of what can you now do? Because I think that, my personal philosophy is that you need to gather the information and then you need to take action. And then you need to gather information and then you need to take action. Like that is the only way that progress is made. You can't stay stuck in the gathering information phase, right? Then no action will be taken and then no change will be made. And so my first question is just for funsies question, because I love it, is what does love mean to you?
Wow. This is interesting. Love, because that is a loaded question. And that's the other thing I'd say for your audience, when you say, I love you, what does it mean? Because it can mean love for a child, love for a flower, love for a piece of chocolate cake. Love in a relationship for me has to do with trust, has to do with the being able to communicate, to listen and connect. There's also something on the physicalness of it. Like when I sleep, even if I'm away from my partner, I reach out and I have a hand on them, something like that. I love the connection. Trust is big, but it's something, wow. It's like something that makes my heart sing. I don't know how else to say that, but some people just make my heart sing.
Thank you. Thanks for answering that. I know it's a big one. Okay, if people got nothing else out of this episode, what do you hope that they got? What's the one thing?
I hope they slow down and take, even if it's 5 minutes a day, to get in touch with their body. To really, it can be as easy as if you're washing your hands, how does the water feel on your skin? Like the temperature, whatever. Just notice your body and notice what turns you on.
I love it. So that it kind of couples with the next question,
okay,
which is, what is an action that people can take? So you did kind of answer
that is an action.
That is totally an action.
Yeah, definitely take time to explore and get in tune with your body. There's something about sitting and paying attention to your body, but there's also a second thing you can do with sensations. What is it? The touch, the palm of the hand is so sensitive, just doing circles on your hands. And just caress your body. Right.
And maybe for some people, for yours, it's the palm of your hand. Maybe for some people, it's their thigh. Or,
yes. Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes it's different parts of the body on different days. It's
exactly.
Yesterday it was my thigh and today it's my fingertips and maybe tomorrow it's my nose. I don't know.
And if you have a partner, just take time and explore their bodies. and vice versa, like with no intention other than exploring and kind of mapping their bodies.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. Okay, beautiful. Well, tell us, obviously, people listening, some people listening are like, this Maggie person, I need to do stuff with them. I need to follow, I need to find. So what are you promoting? What are you up to? How can people find you?
Okay, the website is www.World Peace Thru Awesome Sex, all spelled out, and the through is THRU.com.
And it's in the show notes too.
Oh, excellent. And what I'm promoting right now is I'm sending out two times a month a newsletter blog type thing, no charge, and it's about different topics. And then once a month, the second Tuesday of the month, from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Eastern time, I have an inquiry call on whatever the topic is. Sometimes it's pushing your limits. Sometimes it's communication and relationships. It could be anything, but it has to do with whatever the topic of the month is. So you can sign up for that newsletter on the website. There's not much more on the website right now, but there will be.
Well, I love your newsletter. I read your newsletter. It has great information and really good stories too.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I've gotten feedback that it's nice, the vulnerability of it and the authenticity, because I do share about my personal life too, just so that people know that you can go from a wreck to awesome sex. You got whatever your journey is, you're not alone.
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing, is that I'm glad that we talked about what we did today, but you really do have such an amazing and inspiring story. Like, that's what I love about your newsletter. I was like eating it up. I was like, oh my God. Cause I've known you for, over a year now. I didn't know some of this stuff about you. And I was like, holy cow. Like, I knew, that you used to be an architect and like all this stuff, but it was just like, I had no idea the depth of your story. And so I'm just going to shout out your newsletter because I love it. I'm like, anyway. Okay. So thank you so much for being on the show. It really has been just an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for everyone who's listening and watching. Remember that whatever channel that you are watching on right now, whether that be Facebook, YouTube, whatever podcast you're listening to this on, make sure that you hit the like button, the download button, the little bell button, whatever you need to do so that you don't miss anything, because we have conversations about love, sex, relationships, and taboo topics that we wish that we could talk about. And this is where we talk about it. We're live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. on the Transformation Network Facebook page. And then it's aired on YouTube and podcast every Thursday. All links are in the show notes. Maggie, any closing words?
Yes, I want to acknowledge you for doing this, because the more we talk about sex and compare notes, we'll know what good sex is. And then we'll if it's bad sex, it's like, no, I don't want that. And then I think if we have more sex and better sex, we're going to have better relationships, more long-term relationships. Yeah. And because how you do one thing, you do everything.
Yeah.
So awesome sex, awesome partner.
Amazing. Thank you, Maggie, so much. And everyone who's listening and watching, until next time, keep loving.
You have been listening to The Elizabeth Cunningham Show, courageously expanding love with me, Elizabeth Cunningham. Tune in live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on transformationtalkradio.com, where we shed light on relationships, sex, love, and the ways we wish we could be, but never thought were possible. Learn to love yourself and create the relationships you want. Connect with me at ElizabethAnnCunningham.com. That's ElizabethAnnCunningham.com.